There's nothing that puts our surf progression on hold or makes it impossible to progress more than being unable to connect with the wave and harness the wave's speed and energy to get stability and make everything just a lot more effortless. It is a big issue that definitely makes life difficult for a lot of beginner to intermediate surfers and even a lot of the people who are advancing towards the more advanced stages of their surfing as well. But as a surf coach, there's some relatively easy fixes that if we know what to look for, we can really get on top of. And today I wanted to just run through the pretty straightforward actions that you can take in your next sessions to connect with the wave and your board far better so that you're utilizing the wave's energy properly rather than struggling, getting caught behind, or just pushing water through your turns. And if you are new here, my name is Considine and I'm a professional longboarder, a surf coach and a physiotherapist. And I created a platform called longboardsessions.com to help people experience the absolute best out of their surfing. And today I'm here to help you guys level up your surfing no matter where you're at. If you do find the video helpful or if you find it valuable, then please feel free to subscribe. It really helps support the channel quite a lot. And if you know of anyone else who might find it valuable as well, then feel free to share it with them, of course. But let's get straight into the video. So I'm making this video to help anyone, no matter your stage in your surfing, to really dial in your speed management. So you might be a beginner surfer who's just trying to stay with the wave a little bit longer without losing control or losing momentum, or even intermediate surfers who are trying to just really feel like they can connect sections and want to understand how to control that. And even some advanced surfers who are just looking to advance their rhythm and being in sync with the wave, especially as we start to commit more critical maneuvers. Because the way I think about it, speed is the foundation for all of our surfing, and everything that we want to do in a wave, whether it's trimming, cross-stepping, or even just staying in the pocket itself, it does all depend on the ability to manage our speed really, really well. So not just going fast, but ensuring that you're in the right part of the wave so that the wave will give you the speed that you want to work with. So in this video, what I want to do is break down the 3 levels of speed management, and each one does build on the last. So all super, super important. Level 1 is all about how we're manipulating our position, our weight, and weight transference on the board correctly to avoid the big mistakes. So learning how to find your sweet spot and use the subtle footwork to control the board's trim and acceleration. Level 2 takes that a step further, where we'll actually be looking to match the angle of the wave, learning how to position your board so the wave will actually give you speed rather than taking it away. And level 3, this is where we're actually going to really learn how to leverage the power and speed center of the wave so that we can keep ourselves within the energy source, which makes surfing just a lot freer and a lot less effortful. All right, so let's get straight into level 1. So this first level is aimed at beginner surfers mostly, but seriously, even the more advanced surfers can get a lot out of this, especially if you are finding yourself struggling to keep momentum, especially on the smaller or weaker waves. Now, the big goal here is pretty simple. We need to make sure that we've actually got a mobile back foot, because your back foot is really the key to fine-tuning your board's planing across the surface of the water. So that meaning how flat your board runs and how much drag that you're creating and how well you're able to maintain the speed that you've got. So as soon as you've popped up, one of the things that we really need to be thinking about before we go into anything else is our foot placement. And a really common thing that I see really frequently becoming a problem for people, and something I've been helping a fair few people with on longboard sessions recently, is where that front foot is positioned in our foundational stance, which is the stance we use for balance and speed. So if we're too far back and trying to surf from here in most cases, we'll just be wiping a lot of much needed speed away, and which just makes everything else from balance to maneuvers way harder than they need to be. But too far forwards as well is also going to be an issue for obvious reasons, where we might nosedive or get that nose of the board purling. So finding that sweet spot, as you might have heard it, is super, super critical here. Now, a really nice way to think about this and to find this for most boards is just to look at the midpoint or the center between the nose and the tail. So the middle of the board, and coming a little bit forward of this. I typically recommend about one of your own foot lengths ahead of the midpoint, and actually drawing this line pretty hard and fixed into your board with some wax. And this is where we actually want that front foot to land, and it's where we're going to be able to generate the most speed and stability. On shorter boards, you can land here from takeoff, but on a longer board, we might do a tail pop in order to maneuver initially, but then we want to come here to accelerate and get all of our stability and balance. and just to allow the board to plane correctly across the wave. You definitely don't want 1 foot either side of this line either, because 1 foot forwards and 1 foot behind is a really, really challenging way to distribute our weight on the board. Most of our weight naturally sits a little bit forward on that front foot, so even small misplacements can cause a lot of drag and slow you down and cause the nose to pearl again. But if you've now found where that sweet spot is, I'd actually recommend just doing a few land drills to begin with. Just practice popping up and making sure that your front foot, if you're on a short board, lands on that line every time. Or if you are doing that tail pop on a longer board, making sure that you know how to step toward that front line. Then when you're in the water, you can just repeat this and do the same thing. Feel where that line would be underneath your foot. And if you do miss it, because you've got that thick line there, you can see this, which is really valuable, then we want to try and correct ourselves to come more forward or backward to land that front foot on the line so that we can get that positioning dialed. Now that we've got that sorted, the really important thing I wanted to speak about for level 1 for everyone is our back foot positioning and really our back foot movement. This is 100% something that a lot of people haven't considered yet, I find, but it can make a really, really big difference. If you pop up and then lock your stance in place, even if you have that front foot where we said on that line, then we still can't really accelerate optimally. And the answer here is going to be that our back foot shouldn't be fixed in place all the time. When we are trying to accelerate, especially if you are in the whitewater or if you feel like you're about to lose the wave, bringing your back foot a little bit forward, either a little bit or a lot, depending on the board that you're on, can make a massive difference. This does just help to get the body weight more towards the sweet spot or towards the center of the board, which makes a massive difference in allowing that board to plane way better across the surface of the water. So the closer the feet are together, the more the board can skim over the surface rather than pushing water, which, as we know, kind of ruins our momentum and ruins our glide. Initially, this might feel a little bit weird, especially if you are on a shorter board, but I do recommend that you just give it a go and give it a try, because that back foot forwards, even just a couple of inches on a short board, and then we can be a little bit more significant with bringing our feet together, heel to heel, toe to toe on a long board, you will definitely feel a difference in your acceleration and your ability to maintain your speed. And then once you're ready to turn or make a more dynamic movement happen, that's when you can come from this position, bring that back foot back again, widen that stance, and get a little bit more control and leverage from the tail. Now, for level 2, we are going to need to start using the wave itself. But just before we get going here, if you're finding this stuff helpful, in the free section of longboardsessions.com, I've actually placed in one of our video series called Wave Theory, there for you to check out, 100% free. And I think it's super, super relevant to the next 2 phases that we're going to go through here. So to go into a little bit more depth and learn absolutely everything that I like to teach and that you need to know about wave positioning to harness the wave speed and be on the right part of the wave for the maneuvers that you're wanting to perform, you can totally go check that out, and I'll place that somewhere down below in the description. So for level 2 though, this is where we start to match the angle of the wave. And this is a huge turning point for people who are transitioning from riding straight in the whitewater to actually going along the surface of the wave. But there's some key areas that do hold a lot of people back here. So what I usually find happening here is most surfers do a good job of angling slightly across the wave at takeoff, maybe around kind of 45 degrees across the wave. But then they kind of get stuck at that point where the nose of the board is still pointing mostly towards the beach, again at about 45 degrees. And instead of going across, they sort of go down the face of the wave. And when that happens, you're effectively going to be surfing what I call the bottom third or the danger zone. And that's where you lose all of your speed and stability because the board just gets bogged, trapping the water underneath it, and it's just really hard to gain any speed or momentum there. And this happens because as beginners, this is where we do tend to feel the most comfortable. It is the flattest and the least steep part of the wave, but also the slowest. So what we need to learn to do is to essentially trust the face of the wave more and to really angle our board across it, probably far more than you think you need to do at this stage in your surfing. When I'm coaching people in the water, probably the number one thing that I find myself saying the most is when I'm on the wave with people, saying that we need them to angle more and more and more. And often people think they've angled far enough, again, maybe at that 45-degree mark, but they do need to go more so they're heading across the wave. So next time you're out there, as soon as you've taken off, try to point that board directly across the wave, not going down it. Ideally, we want to end up around the middle third of the wave face or maybe just above it. And the top third is where you'll go fastest, but it's also a little bit trickier in the early stages to stay balanced here. So in the start, just try and get to the middle and just work on keeping your angle truly across the wave face. If you do start to feel yourself dropping too low, or if the board feels like it's going to fall out from underneath you, lean slightly onto that inside rail, and that'll help just to keep you lifted up the wave face. Now, level 3 is where we start to get our surfing feeling super fluid, and it's all about leveraging the middle to upper third of the wave. So to explain this properly, let's break the wave down into our 3 zones. The bottom third, or what I call the danger zone, is where we lose our speed and control. The middle third is what I call the transition center, and the top third is going to be our speed center. Now, the goal of good speed management is to move in and out of that top to middle third and to stay in rhythm with the wave, of course. When you start connecting those two areas, that's when your surfing starts to look effortless, where you're not forcing anything. And the middle third is actually where we want to change our rails. And this is where the real magic happens here, because that's what lets us go from climbing up the wave to driving back down it. And the mistake that I see most surfers make here is when they wait too long to engage that opposite rail. So for example, if you're going up for a top turn and you wait until you're right at the top to start that turn, it's probably already too late. And by the time your board responds, you're off the back. And the same happens with our bottom turns. If you wait until you're down the flats to start engaging that inside rail, unfortunately, you'll have lost all of your speed already. So the key thing I like to focus on here is to start changing your rail through that middle third as you're moving through that transition center. So when you're climbing the wave, start to ease onto your outside rail just before you reach the top. Then as you drop back down, start engaging that inside rail before we reach the bottom. It's all about being more proactive than reactive in this case. Now, you might start with some low angle rail engagements to slowly move up and down, but then as you get better and better at this, you'll start noticing that you can make these more drastic rail transitions, making them quicker and sharper. And this is basically the foundation of our pumping. So I hope you found that really, really helpful. If you do have any questions with anything there, then feel free to leave those down in the comments below. We'd love to have a bit of a chat. And of course, if you have anything else that you did want to see on the channel, anything else I can help you guys with specifically, then please let me know. I'm always looking for ideas. I'll pop another video on the screen here, which is going to be really, really helpful for your thinking about catching waves and breaking it down into 2 separate stages, which is, I think, really, really important. So that'll be somewhere on the screen. But other than that, we'll leave that there for today, and we'll catch you on the next one.